My worry is about the Gaza war. The Israeli aim is to destroy the Hamas leadership. Let's say they destroy the Hamas leadership that's now in Gaza. That's not the end of it. You will get the next generation of Hamas. Half the Arab world is with the Hamas. And that will be worse than this. And what impact it will have in our part of the world, we don't know. It's a serious issue. You can't destroy the Hamas. You can destroy this leadership. You can destroy everyone who was in the Hamas, not only the fighters, but even the members. But still the next generation of Hamas has already been born. Basically, what is happening? The whole Gaza war is brought into your living room by Al Jazeera. And you just should know best, because the Tet war in Vietnam, the Tet campaign was brought into the American living rooms by the American TV, and the whole attitude of America to the war changed. And that is what is happening. So this is what we have to look out, and we have to ensure there's ceasefire, and we can ensure that the situation will gradually or very slowly come back to a normal situation. Is the Chinese policy of now asserting itself and making its claims. Part of it you can understand, because China, the second largest economy in the world, and China feels, like many other Asian countries, that they have not been given its due place. But in this background that we have to function. And then you have different groupings. First is the coming together of Russia and China. The earlier American policy was to keep Russia and China divided and ensure both those countries had better relations with US than with each other. Now you've gone back on it, and you've got China and Russia having good relations and at the expense of US. That's another feature at the present times. And the emergence of two blocks. One is the NATO, which has again come together during the Ukraine war. But again, within NATO, the smaller countries, and in Europe, EU itself, the smaller Eastern and the Southern European nations have been given leadership by America at the expense of the policies, followed by the larger members of the EU and NATO. Britain's role itself has diminished because he had left the EU. But on the other hand, you find a firmer bloc in the Quad itself, which certainly showed in the vote in the UN on the ceasefire. While the NATO was divided, the Quad was all united in how they voted. And China itself is now moving and strengthening relations with Africa and even with America. So within this, how do we survive? That is the first issue. What do we do? So what is our policy? Firstly, it is also a result of the economic power moving from the West towards Asia. It started, funnily enough, in East Asia, but now it's coming to South Asia and the Indian Ocean, then going on to Africa. So within it, firstly is the Indo-Pacific, a new concept. On this, we have taken the same lines as the ASEAN outlook on Indo-Pacific, that we are two interconnected oceans. We are not one space. We are two interconnected oceans, and each one has its own character. This is why it's important, because Asia-Pacific has what is called the hub and spoke system of the US plus China. But we are not so. The Bandung Conference and subsequently the IOPZ resolution, which was presented by Mrs. Bandaranaike, has laid down the principles, which was again confirmed at the Jakarta Concord of the IORA leaders in 2017. So let us work within it. Let us work on the basis that there should be no big power rivalry in the Indian Ocean. Secondly, we have to look at economics. Foreign affairs is not merely political relations. So we have to find our markets, we have to find our economic ties. South SAARC as a concept is dead. I mean, someone has forgotten to tell SAARC that it's dead, but the fact is it's no longer functional. What do we find? I think we have to move further down. We have BIMSTEC, which is still coming together as a group. The other option available for us was to join RCEP. So the government of Sri Lanka applied to join the RCEP, which will give us a big market, the biggest market. It's not as tight as the comprehensive and the progressive Trans-Pacific Partnership, but nevertheless, I think it's the best economic bloc that Sri Lanka can join. At the same time, we are negotiating with India on a separate treaty which will certainly upgrade the present free trade agreement and we will go into a comprehensive economic and technological partnership. The Indian government has recommended that we separate trade from investments. I think that's good. So we will go along that track. So we have India, we have RCEP, we have now got to further deepen our relations with EU and expand our relationships there. So what Sri Lanka is now moving is one is to develop our economic relations with all the countries in Asia and look at Europe and look at Africa as a potential market later on. But as far as the political direction is concerned, that we treat the Indian Ocean as being free from big power rivalry. We should not allow big power rivalry to take place there. That Sri Lanka has been expressing at every international fora. We ourselves seems to be becoming caught in the America-China rivalry. Hambantota is being labeled as a Chinese port, as the government at times are supposed to be helping China. So that's how it works. We all know what the actual situation is. But that rivalry is also not good for our region. It's a rivalry we can do without. Far as we are concerned, we don't look at US as one option and China as another option. We take on the ASEAN outlook on the Indo-Pacific. The Chinese government prefers to stay on to the Asia-Pacific concept. We have no problem with it, not at all. Because in any case, the BRI is really interconnection of the Pacific Ocean and the Indian Ocean. If otherwise, the Chinese ships came from Pacific Ocean through Malacca Straits to the Indian Ocean. So in fact, we have still got interconnectivity between the two. But I think the Indian Ocean should be big enough to accommodate Indo-Pacific, to accommodate BRI, to accommodate the France's views on the Indo-Pacific. So we should be big enough to accommodate any of those. And certainly, India anyway has Saga and its other concepts. So we have to use the Indian Ocean as not being reserved for one group or one set of nations, but open to all. We will strive to do that. And for that purpose, we will also certainly go ahead with the proposal for the freedom of navigation and overhead certainly and undersea cables in the Indian Ocean. We will go ahead with that. With India and Maldives, trilateral security dialogue, we will deal with the issues of non-state actors in the region, especially those who are involved in the drugs trade. So that is Sri Lanka's view. But we come to the next issue. As between the North and the South, in regard to climate change and debt relief, it's our view that there should be a debt write-off for all the low-income countries, especially in Africa. Africa cannot carry this burden, and we have to ensure that Africa is relieved of this burden. So therefore, we have taken a firm stand that there should be a write-off of the debt in respect of all low-income countries. My worry is about the Gaza war. The Israeli aim is to destroy the Hamas leadership. Let's say they destroy the Hamas leadership that's now in Gaza. That's not the end of it. You will get the next generation of Hamas. Half the Arab world is with the Hamas. And that will be worse than this. And what impact it will have in our part of the world, we don't know. It's a serious issue. You can't destroy the Hamas. You can destroy this leadership. You can destroy everyone who was in the Hamas, not only the fighters, but even the members. But still the next generation of Hamas has already been born. Basically, what is happening? The whole Gaza war is brought into your living room by Al Jazeera. And you just should know best, because the Tet war in Vietnam, the Tet campaign was brought into the American living rooms by the American TV, and the whole attitude of America to the war changed. And that is what is happening. So this is what we have to look out, and we have to ensure there's ceasefire, and we can ensure that the situation will gradually or very slowly come back to a normal situation.